Hello, love bugs. My name is JB, and I am a certified peer support specialist in the state of Arizona. For those of you that don't know what a peer support specialist is, it is someone that is trained in the behavioral health field and also substance abuse. A little background on me: the reason why I wanted to become a peer support specialist and kind of work in the behavior health field, also substance abuse, is because of my background. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, very toxic family that was riddled with substance abuse and mental illness. I was diagnosed myself with a mental illness back in 2012, and when I first was diagnosed, I was in denial because I didn't want the stigma that goes with someone being diagnosed with a mental illness. So I didn't want to accept that that was something, wrong with me. So I denied it for a while, probably about a year or so. And I didn't receive help or treatment or anything because I thought there's nothing wrong with me. I'm fine. I'm okay. I don't think the doctor knows what he's talking about. So when I finally accepted that there is something that is not going right with me, there's not something right with how I think, how I behave, and I started to actually seek treatment, that's when I came across a lot of challenges. And that's what made me want to become a peer support specialist, because of all the challenges that I had in my journey, the different challenges and the stigma that goes with mental health. There's a lot of stigma uh, with mental health. My mental health partially came from genetics because I believe my mother had a mental illness, and a mental illness does run in my family. The majority of my mental illness, or me being diagnosed with a mental illness, came from trauma. I was abused as a child, severely abused as a child by my biological father, physically and sexually. And from what I know now about mental illness and what I know now about how it works and understanding the brain, when you are a very young child, or adolescent, and you experience trauma, it affects the brain in a way where it causes the brain to shut down, or even to, like you would consider like crack. Like you think of a glass that would crack into 100 different pieces. um, that's where you get some people that have like personality disorders. You say, what's wrong with that person? Or mood swings, bipolar, all those different things can be directly attributed to trauma as a child. And trauma is different for everyone. You don't necessarily have to be physically or sexually abused to be someone suffering from trauma. You could have witnessed a traumatic event, you could have been verbally abused and neglected and mistreated, and that is could also be considered a traumatic event. It's just how our brains process information, and how it tries to protect us from this information if it was very negative. So my life journey through the behavioral health field as a client was very, I'd say, challenging to say the least. And so I decided that I wanted to be um, a person to speak out and to be an example, and show that even if you have been diagnosed with a mental illness or disorder, you can be healthy. I'm not on any medication right now. I don't take any medication. I'm not saying that for people to stop taking medication if they are on, because meds can definitely help. I'm just sharing my personal journey of what worked for me. When I got diagnosed, I have been hospitalized over 20 times for different things, suicide attempts, voices, just different things. My mind was not healthy, And I felt at the time that it never would be. I never would be normal, you know. But I am here to say that through years of getting treatment, but more so finding the right place for to get treatment, I'm in a completely different place, and I'm able to be an example and a support system for other people in my community, where I live, at the clinic that I go and receive services. Um, I am a support for other people to show them that, you know, you don't have to be your diagnosis. I knew that I really wanted to help when I was told by a friend of mine that I'd known for, I'd say probably about 8 or 9 years. Um, they knew about me being diagnosed with a mental illness. They knew about me receiving services, someone I was very close with. And they told me one day, you know, to not share with anyone that I was diagnosed with a mental illness, to keep it to myself, to not tell anybody, that if I did, that I would be basically ostracized. And something inside of me said, I know I have to tell and I have to talk about it, because if this is happening to me and people are telling me to be quiet or saying I shouldn't talk about it, or in the African American community is very much a taboo to be diagnosed with a mental illness. We just don't talk about that, and it's not something that um, most people don't feel comfortable sharing or knowing. Even I think how to approach it is such a heavy loaded conversation. When somebody says, oh, a person has a mental illness, you think of all these, you know, things that you see in the movies or people that you may have seen before up and down the street, and then you just associate that with a person that has a mental illness. And 9 times out of 10, that is not exactly true. That's an exaggerated case. There are lots of people that are in that situation, but there are also a lot of people that are extremely healthy. They live very active lives and they have a mental illness diagnosis, and you could be sitting next to that person, you could be working with that person, you could be in your grocery store standing in line next to that a person and never know that they had a mental illness diagnosis, because it's not the quote unquote status quo of what somebody would look like or act like with a mental illness. So I think we live in a time now where people are starting to speak out more about it. I think 10 years ago, maybe not as much, but I think times are changing. But for me, that's just a little background on me and why, you know, I wanted to help people, why I wanted to become a peer support specialist, why I wanted to be certified. And I even still want to continue my education so that I can be able to help, you know, even further if that's something that I decide to do later on. But for now, I can definitely speak on this topic from personal experience as someone that's been a client in the behavioral health field for years, and also someone now that is a peer support specialist that is helping people.